Think about the biggest, like, most ambitious goal you're harboring right now.
Right, that one vision for your life that you keep safely tucked away in your imagination.
Exactly. I'm your host, and jumping right in today, what if I told you that being deeply, romantically, passionately obsessed with that goal is actually the precise reason you are failing to achieve it?
I mean, I'm our resident expert today, and I have to say it is a really bitter pill to swallow. But if you look at the mechanics of human behavior, our most cherished daydreams are often, well, the very things keeping us paralyzed.
And that is the exact friction we are dissecting in our deep dive today. We are pulling from a fascinating stack of source materials that basically act as a forensic analysis of unfulfilled potential.
Yeah, we're really getting into the root causes.
Right. And the mission today isn't to give you, like, a motivational pep talk. We are looking squarely at the primary reasons why dreams fail to materialize. Why do some people manage to drag their visions out of their heads and into reality while the rest of us just, I don't know, sit on the couch treating our own lives like a movie we aren't allowed to direct?
It's tough, but it requires a complete shift in how we view the underlying machinery of achievement.
How so?
Well, we have this culturally ingrained mythology that success requires a lightning bolt of inspiration,
Yeah.
right? Or that high achievers just possess some relentless, innate drive that the rest of us somehow lack.
Yeah, that they're just built differently.
Exactly. But the sources we are looking at today, they strip all of that away. They reveal that the gap between imagination and execution isn't about your character at all. It's actually about neurobiology and systemic design.
Okay, let's unpack this because I want to start with the first major point of failure highlighted in the sources, and I'm wildly guilty of this one.
I think we all are.
Right. So the argument is that the first reason we don't act is a fundamental lack of specificity. The sources state that a dream without a plan is simply a wish.
Right, which sounds like a bumper sticker, but it's true.
It totally does, but I want to push past the bumper sticker version of that because, I tell myself I want to get fit or I want to be financially independent. Those feel like concrete goals to me. Why does the material argue that this phrasing is actually setting me up to fail on a biological level?
Because your prefrontal cortex, which handles the executive functioning and planning in your brain, it essentially views ambiguity as a metabolic threat.
Wait, a metabolic threat? Just from saying, like, I want to be successful.
Yeah, exactly. Think about it from an evolutionary standpoint. The brain's primary job is literally just to conserve caloric energy.
Okay.
So when you give your brain a vague directive, like get fit or start a business, you aren't giving it a specific task. You're giving it a massive, complex puzzle with 1,000 unmade micro decisions.
Like, where do I even start?
Right. What kind of business? Who is the target audience? What is the first product? Your brain looks at that overwhelming cognitive load, calculates the immense energy required just to figure out step one, and it defaults to the path of least resistance.
Which usually means staying on the couch and scrolling on your phone.
Precisely.
Because scrolling requires zero cognitive mapping.
None at all. The ambiguity creates a cognitive tax that you literally cannot afford to pay at the end of a long day. The human mind does not know how to execute on abstract concepts. Success only begins when a dream is forced out of the clouds and converted into a highly specific metric.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the source material gives a really tangible example of this transition, actually. It compares the goal of I want to write a book to the goal of I will write 200 words every morning before breakfast.
Looking at that through the lens of cognitive load, it makes total sense.
Yeah, because write a book is a mountain. You can't just write a book on a random Tuesday. But 200 words, that is a localized, contained task.
It dramatically shrinks the surface area of the friction. What's fascinating here is that when you wake up, you don't have to debate what you are doing or how you are doing it or whether you even feel like it.
The parameters are locked in.
Exactly. You remove the burden of choice entirely.
It honestly reminds me of how a GPS system operates. Like, your brain is this incredibly powerful navigational supercomputer, right? But if you get in the car and just yell, take me to a better life, or you type in, drive west, the system just freezes.
It gives you the spinning loading wheel.
Yeah. It needs the exact address, the street name, the house number, the zip code. How many of your goals right now are just drive west, you know?
That's a great question to ask yourself.
But I do want to push back on this a little bit because shrinking the goal down to just 200 words or run for 10 minutes feels, I don't know, almost depressing.
Depressing how?
Well, it strips the majesty out of the big dream. Doesn't aiming so small fundamentally kill the ambition?
I completely understand that resistance. It feels like you're compromising.
Oh, yeah.
But you have to separate the vision from the daily operation.
Okay, separate them.
Yeah, the vision can remain majestic, but the operation must be incredibly mundane. If you rely on the majesty of the cathedral you are trying to build to motivate you every single day, you'll just be constantly overwhelmed by how far away you are from actually finishing it.
So backfires.
Exactly. By shrinking the goal to laying one single perfectly placed brick today, you are actually manipulating your brain's dopamine system.
Wait, how so? How does dopamine fit in?
Well, when you achieve a hyper-specific small goal, like those 200 words, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine. That neurochemical acts as a reward, obviously, but more importantly, it acts as the fuel for motivation to do it again tomorrow.
Oh, I see.
Right? If your goal is just write a book, you withhold that dopamine reward for 2 years until the manuscript is done.
And you just biologically run out of steam long before you finish?
You have to rig the game so that you can actually win today, every single day.
Wow. Okay, so let's follow this progression. You realize the vague dream is a trap. You calibrate the GPS. You break the cathedral down to the brick, right?
Right.
And you commit to your 200 words a day. Day 1 is electric. Day 2, you feel like a disciplined genius.
Naturally.
But what happens on day 14? You wake up, you didn't sleep well, it's raining, and you are profoundly existentially bored by those 200 words. Because this leads directly into the second massive reason our sources say dreams die: the mythology of passion.
Yes, and this is perhaps the most pervasive and frankly destructive cultural narrative we have regarding success.
Right.
We're constantly bombarded with the cliche, follow your passion and you'll never work a day in your life.
Which is such a beautiful idea. But the sources argue it's essentially poison for long-term achievement.
It is poison because it creates a fundamentally flawed expectation.
How do you mean?
Well, if you internalize the idea that chasing your dream should always feel inherently good, then the moment you experience boredom, frustration, or fatigue, you will totally misinterpret that friction.
You'll assume you're on the wrong path.
Exactly. You'll think, well, I'm not enjoying this today, so I must have lost my passion. Therefore, I should quit and find a new dream.
So you end up treating a normal Tuesday slump like a profound existential crisis.
Yes. Relying on passion is a massive biological liability. Passion, by definition, is an intense, volatile emotion. It relies on a huge spike of neurochemicals.
Right.
But human biology is designed for homeostasis. It physically cannot maintain a spike forever.
Yeah.
The crash is completely inevitable.
So if you're tethered to that spike...
Your progress will completely halt the moment your biology normalizes.
I was actually thinking about this when reading the sources, and it feels like trying to heat your house in the winter by constantly setting off fireworks in your living room.
That is a wildly accurate way to picture it.
Right. It's loud, it's spectacular, it produces a massive burst of thermal energy, and you feel incredibly warm and alive for about, 4 seconds.
And then the smoke clears,
Yeah.
You're sitting in the dark, you smell like sulfur, and you are freezing again.
Exactly. You cannot survive the winter on fireworks. You need a boring, predictable, completely unsexy thermostat that just quietly clicks on when the temperature drops, regardless of how anyone in the house is feeling. And that thermostat is discipline.
That's a perfect analogy, because discipline is about building structural neural pathways that operate independently of your emotional state. The people who actually manifest their visions are not the ones vibrating with the most joy every morning.
That's such a relief to hear, honestly.
It is. They are simply the ones who have decoupled their actions from their moods. Discipline is just the agreement you make with yourself that your feelings today do not get to dictate your behavior today.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
When we talk about creative dreams, like writing a novel, painting, designing something innovative, doesn't relying on rigid discipline sound counterintuitive?
Oh.
Well, what about the chaotic genius, the artist who waits for the muse to strike and then paints for 40 hours straight in a frenzy of passion? Doesn't discipline just kill the art?
We love the myth of the chaotic genius because it excuses our own lack of discipline.
Oh, ouch.
I know, it hurts. But it allows us to say, I'm not failing, I'm just waiting for the muse. But if you actually study the routines of historically prolific creators, the reality is starkly different. They were almost pathologically disciplined.
You mean they weren't just wandering around waiting for a lightning bolt?
Not at all. Stephen King sits down every morning and writes a quota of words, whether he feels inspired or whether he thinks what he is writing is absolute garbage. Picasso treated his studio like a blue-collar job.
Wow.
The muse is highly unreliable. If we connect this to the bigger picture, as the saying goes, inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. Relying solely on passion makes you fragile.
Because you become a victim to, like, how much sleep you got.
Or if someone cut you off in traffic.
Hmm.
Discipline is the only mechanism that actually protects your dream from your own temporary moods.
Okay, so we've established the specific plan to beat cognitive load, and we've installed the thermostat of discipline to survive the death of passion.
Yeah.
But even with the best plan and the most ironclad discipline, reality eventually punches you in the face. You write a chapter that is genuinely terrible. You launch the product and it gets 0 sales. You fail.
Yeah. And this brings us to the third, and really the most paralyzing, reason dreams remain unrealized.
Fear of failure.
Yes.
Oh,
But I want to be extremely precise here, because it isn't just the fear of a negative outcome. It is what that negative outcome represents to our ego.
the sources suggest that we actually prefer the safety of the daydream to the reality of the attempt.
We absolutely do.
Yeah.
Because as long as the dream remains entirely in your head, it is perfect. It is totally unblemished.
It's safe.
Exactly. The moment you take an action and produce a result in the real world, it becomes flawed. It becomes subject to criticism.
All right.
For many people, the fear of failure is actually the fear of grieving that perfect, untouchable fantasy. They would rather have a pristine dream they never achieve than a messy, imperfect reality they have to actually work through.
It's a total protection mechanism. Like, if I never truly try, I can always tell myself I could have been a great writer. I can preserve the potential.
Yes, the potential is intoxicating.
But the moment I write a bad book, I have to face the fact that I might just be bad at this.
And that is the exact psychological wall. We treat failure as a permanent indictment of our identity. We view the journey like a final exam in school.
Pass or fail.
Exactly. You take the test, you either get an A and pass, or you get an F and the game is permanently over. You're just stamped as a failure.
But the source material demands a complete redefining of this concept. It argues that failure is not the opposite of success, nor is it a detour away from success. It is the literal road itself.
It's an active part of the path.
Yes. And the way they reframe this is honestly my favorite insight from this entire deep dive. They say that every unsuccessful step, every terrible draft, every rejected pitch is not a failure. It is simply new data.
New data. It completely neutralizes the emotional devastation, doesn't it?
It changes the entire paradigm. So what does this all mean? It makes me think about how a scientist operates in a laboratory.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, if a chemist mixes chemical A and chemical B together, fully expecting the liquid to turn blue, and instead it violently turns purple, melts the beaker, and smells like rotten eggs.
Which is a disaster.
Right. But the scientist doesn't drop to their knees and cry about being a fundamental failure as a human being.
No, they certainly don't take it as a personal reflection of their worth.
Right. They don't quit chemistry. They grab their clipboard and they write down. Fascinating. Mixing A and B under these thermal conditions yields a highly corrosive purple liquid. Good to know.
They log the data.
They log it, they adjust the formula, and they run the experiment again. The explosion wasn't a failure. It was the exact piece of data they needed to know what not to do on the next attempt.
And that is the absolute secret to why certain people achieve massive things. It isn't that they are braver than you, or that they have thicker skin and just don't feel the sting of rejection.
They just have a different framework.
Exactly. They possess a completely different categorization system for reality. They process failure faster because they categorize it strictly as information gathering.
They just have a much larger stack of clipboards than the rest of us.
That's a brilliant way to put it. They understand that to calibrate that GPS system we talked about earlier, you have to make wrong turns. The system needs the feedback of the wrong turn to say recalculating.
Oh, that ties it together perfectly.
Right. If you are so terrified of making a wrong turn that you never take the car out of the driveway, you are actively depriving your system of the very feedback it needs to actually find the destination. This raises an important question, though. What if the stumble you are so terrified of is actually the exact piece of data you need to finally achieve your goal?
Wow. This actually makes me think about how we view successful people retroactively. We look at a finished masterpiece or a thriving company, and we just assume it was a straight line from idea to execution.
The overnight success myth.
Exactly. We don't see the thousands of corrosive purple liquids that melted their beakers along the way.
Because society only rewards the final iteration. But the creator knows that the final iteration is entirely built upon the scaffolding of 100 failed experiments. If you avoid the stumble, you avoid the data. And without the data, you cannot adjust your course.
So if we pull all of these threads together, the core message of these sources is intensely practical. Bridging the massive gap between the beautiful daydream on your couch and the tangible reality of your life does not require a miracle.
No miracles needed.
It doesn't require being chosen by the universe, and it certainly doesn't require waiting around to feel inspired.
It requires dismantling the mythology you've built around the process.
Yes. You have to eliminate the cognitive tax of vague wishes by giving your brain a specific, microscopic, undeniable daily address.
Shrink the friction.
Right. You have to install the unsexy thermostat of discipline to carry you through the vast, boring stretches where passion completely abandons you.
Because it will abandon you.
It will. And finally, you have to completely strip the ego out of your missteps, treating every single stumble not as an indictment of your soul, but as a crucial data point in your ongoing experiment.
And yet the final directive from the sources is really about timing. The urge is always to wait for the perfect time to begin.
Oh, I'll do it when things settle down.
Exactly. When you have more money, when the kids are older, when you feel fully rested. But the perfect conditions are a complete myth designed to keep you in the safety of the planning phase.
They don't exist.
The conditions will always be flawed. You have to take that intimidating dream, shatter it into absurdly small, actionable steps, and execute the very first one today.
Today. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a completely new thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've talked extensively about how failure is simply the acquisition of new data necessary to adjust your course, right?
Right.
Well, if that is true, if missteps are the only way we truly map our potential, then consider this. A person who has never failed at anything, a person whose life is perfectly comfortable and entirely predictable, hasn't actually collected enough data to know what they are truly capable of.
Wow. They are operating with an incredibly incomplete map.
Exactly. So ask yourself, are you purposefully keeping your data set small just so you can feel safe?
That is a powerful question. Thank you for joining us as we explored these sources.
We really hope this depth dive equips you to finally step off the couch and start running your own experiments. Keep collecting that data, and we will see you on the next deep dive.